Thursday, March 8th. A word about Jenny. We spend a lot of time together, even in the bad times, when I'm feeling down or she's feeling sick, or the other way around. We spend hours together every day. Sometimes we talk, sometimes we don't. It doesn't matter. Just being together is enough. I tell her stories, make up jokes, we play word games. Russell joins in sometimes when he's not too tired. Fred occasionally. But mostly it's just me and Jenny. If I'm not in the mood for stories or jokes, she just babbles on about her friends or her family or what she thinks about things. Pop groups, TV, dogs, clothes. I don't really have to do anything. I just listen, nod my head, say uh-huh, now and then. Or not. It doesn't matter. It's good. It keeps us both going. Me more than her, probably. She's coping pretty well. She looks a mess. Skinny, dirty, tired. But then we all look a mess. The difference with Jenny is her eyes. Even when they're runny, her eyes are clear. Alive. As bright as the day she arrived. The rest of us have dead eyes. Earlier this morning, she told me that Anya had some food. What? I said. Cornflakes. I saw them in her room. What were you doing in her room? Jenny looked a little embarrassed. I wanted to ask her about something. What? She blushed. Nothing. Just a girl thing. Oh, right. She smiled awkwardly. I knocked on her door and went in. I didn't mean to be rude. I thought I'd heard her say, come in, but I don't think she did because when I went in there, she was putting a packet of cornflakes under her bed. I saw her, Linus. She shouted at me. Told me to get out. Cornflakes? She nodded. I saw them. Are you sure? I saw them. I suppose she must have had them stored away ever since the food ran out. So while the rest of us have been starving to death, she's been munching away on cornflakes. Stay here, I told Jenny. I went out into the corridor, stomped across to Anya's room, and barged in without knocking. She was sitting on the floor with her back against the wall, dressed only in her underwear, white lace, all grubby and stained. Hey, she said, what the fuck? Shut up. I went under her bed and looked underneath it. There was nothing there. I went over to the bedside cabinet and opened the door. Meanwhile, Anya had gotten to her feet and was screaming at me. What the hell do you think you're doing? Get away from that! How dare you come in here without... Hey! Inside the cabinet, as well as the cornflakes, there was a thick crust of moldy bread, half a bar of chocolate, and a slab of dried-up cheese. Now, hold on a minute, Anya sputtered. Listen, I can explain. I swept the food into my arms, kicked the cabinet shut, and walked out. Anya called after me. I hope you puke on it, you self-righteous little bastard! I gave most of the food to Jenny. The rest of it I divided up and shared out between the four of us. Russell was asleep, so I left a share on his bedside cabinet. Bird didn't want his, but I left it for him anyways. Fred just looked at the handful of manky old food and asked me where I'd got it from. I told him I'd found it down the back of the cooker. He didn't believe me, but he was too hungry to bother with the truth. He took the food and wolfed it all down in one go. Friday, March 9th. First, the good news. There was a massive chunk of cooked meat in the lift this morning. A joint of roast beef on a silver platter. It looked beautiful, thick, solid, juicy, succulent. The smell of it was intoxicating. And the bad news? There were 2 sheets of paper pinned to the meat with skewers. One of them was a grubby little note that we wrote about a month ago. Do you remember that secret meeting I told you about? The one with Russell and Fred? The one I wouldn't tell you about? Well, the reason I didn't want to tell you about it then was because I was worried the man upstairs might find out about it. But it doesn't matter now, because he did find out about it. We wrote the note after Russell had told us everything he knew about the bunker, when Fred had first suggested the message down the toilet idea. Jenny had been right to say it was pointless sending a message if we didn't know where we were. But a bit later on, when I mentioned the idea to Russell, he pointed out that although we didn't know exactly where we were, we did have some information that was worth passing on. We knew that we were probably somewhere in Essex. We knew that we were still alive, and that as long as the police knew we were alive, they'd probably carry on looking for us. And we knew that we were in an old nuclear bunker. There aren't many of them around, Russell had said. And I know someone at Cambridge, a physicist called Dr. Lange, who did some research on post-war nuclear facilities a few years ago. If I write out everything I know about this place, and we included an instruction with our note to pass these details on to Dr. Lange, it's possible that he might be able to work out where we are. So we'd written a note. Names, descriptions, best guesses, as much information as we could think of, and we'd carefully wrapped the note in several layers of black polythene torn from a bin liner, and we tied the bundle up with brightly colored plastic strips ripped from food packaging, and then we'd flushed the package down the toilet. That was almost 4 weeks ago, and now here it was, returned to sender, skewered to a piece of meat. I think we all knew from the beginning that the chances of the note actually reaching anyone were virtually non-existent, and ever since we flushed it away, I've been doing my best not to think about it. But I suppose in the back of my mind, I've been clinging to the hope that someone would find it. So when I saw the note this morning, and when I realized what it meant, it hit me like a cold, hard slap in the face. If anything, though, the other sheet of paper pinned to the meat was even worse. A printed note. It simply said, "Listen, my word. He who kills another shall be free." We all looked at it for a long time. 10 words. 9 puzzled eyes. Bird was still in his room. "Well?" I said eventually. "Well, what?" Fred answered. "What does it mean?" "Who cares?" He pulled out one of the skewers, speared it onto the joint of beef, and dug out a big chunk of meat. "Hold on," I said. "It might be drugged." "I don't care." He stuffed the meat in his mouth and started chewing. "I'd rather hungry." "What?" "He said he'd rather be poisoned than hungry," Jenny said. We watched him eat, chomping, chewing, swallowing. We looked at the meat, mouth-watering, thick and juicy. We looked at the note. "Listen, my word. He who kills another shall be free." The meat won. We went at it like hyenas, ripping out dirty, great pieces with our bare hands and stuffing ourselves stupid. Afterwards, when our bellies were full, and Russell and Jenny had been sick, we considered the notes again. "Listen, my word. He who kills another shall be free." "I think it's meant to be some kind of covenant," Russell said. "What government?" said Fred, picking meat from his teeth. "No," Russell said, "not government. Covenant. It's a kind of contract, an agreement." He coughed weakly. "He's saying that if one of us kills one of the others, he'll free the killer. He'll let them go. A life for a life. That's his word." No one said anything for a while. It was hard to know what to say. What with the other note, the food, and the strangeness of the message, we were all pretty mixed up. I looked at Russell. He had the note in his hand and was reading it very carefully. The paper was trembling in his hand. His face was puffy and pale. He put his hand to his mouth and coughed again. "Yes," he said. "A covenant. I think that's it." "I don't get it," I told him. "It's simple," Russell explained. "If you kill one of us, me, for example, he'll let you go." "Yes, I understand that. I just don't understand why." "Why what?" "Why bother?" "With what?" "Why bother saying it?" "Why not?" "Because it's pointless. It's just stupid." "He's not stupid. He might be stark raving mad, but he's not stupid." "Stark staring," said Russell. "What?" His eye quivered. "It's stark staring mad, not stark raving." "Whatever. He's not stupid, is he?" "No." "He can't seriously believe we're going to start killing each other." "No?" "No." Russell crossed his arms and shrugged. "Well, I don't." His voice trailed off and he started blinking. I don't think... His voice stilled, and he sat there staring at the space. After a while, his head began to sag, and his eyes closed. Russell? I said. Russell? I leaned across the table and shook his arm. His head slumped forward, and his breath rasped. He was miles away, dead to the world. What's the matter with him? Fred asked. Nothing, I said. He's just tired. He'll be all right. Fred shrugged. The message didn't seem to bother him at all. Neither did Russell's odd behavior. Those kinds of things never bother Fred. It's like if he doesn't understand something, or if it doesn't have any direct relevance to him, he just ignores it. It's not a bad way of going about things, I think. I wish I could do it. Fred reached out, picked up the note, and scanned the words. As he read, he carried on picking bits of meat from his teeth. It's crap, he said, tossing the note to the table. He's just pissing around. Of course it's crap, I agreed. So why are we talking about it? It says he, Jenny said suddenly. I looked at her. The note, she said, pointing. Look, it says he who kills another. It doesn't mean anything, Jen. Don't worry about it. It's just another one of his stupid games. She's right, said Anya. What? He who kills another, not the person who kills another, or she who kills another. So what? I snapped. That's what it says. So? She glared at me. You're the one who said he's not stupid. If he's not stupid... She began twisting a lock of hair around her finger. If he's not stupid, then why would he say that? Why would he? Because he's mad, that's why. She patted at me. I closed my eyes. This is what he wants, I thought. This is what he wants. Madness, disruption, descent into chaos. This is what it's all about. He's like a little kid poking a stick into a nest of ants. He enjoys seeing the chaos. That's it, isn't it? That's what you want? You just want to see what happens. All right, I'll show you what happens. I'll write it down for you, okay? How about that? What happens is this. Bird comes out of his room and shuffles over to the table, holding his head to one side and squinting at the light. His skin is a mess of blotches and streaks. He sits down. Hey, says Fred. Bird grunts. Despite the cold, he's sweating. He looks at the meat. What's that? What does it look like? Says Fred. Bird glances at him. What? Fred grins and shakes his head. Is he poorly? Whispers Jenny. I nod. Jenny looks at Bird with the true concern of a child. She shouldn't, but she does. With delicate fingers, she picks a shred of meat from the joint and offers it to Bird. He looks at her, sniffs, then plucks the morsel from her finger and puts it in his mouth. Chews warily, swallows, winces. There's a note, Anya tells him. Huh? She picks up the man's note and passes it to Bird. He stares at her. Unsettled, she lowers her eyes. He reads the note, blinks, reads it again, looks up, blinks again. Then he carefully folds the note and puts it in his shirt pocket. I'm tired, he says. He stands up and groans. My throat hurts. Across the table, Russell has opened his eyes and is staring intently at him. Bird looks back at Russell, says, What? Then turns away and walks unsteadily back to his room. All these things, the meat, the message, the 10-pound note folded into a butterfly, I've thought about them. I've thought long and hard. Are they supposed to mean something? Are they clues, symbols, signs, hints? I don't think so. They're just toys. Games. He's just messing about. That's all. He's just enjoying himself. I've thought about that too. But I'm not going to tell you what I think just yet. Because, 1, I'm not sure it makes any sense. And 2, if it does make sense, I'm not sure I want to talk about it. Later on, I made some tea and took it into Russell's room. It didn't smell too good in there. Kind of sicky and stale and a bit shitty, like a mad old person's room. Everything seemed dirty and brown, even the air. Russell propped himself up on the bed and sipped his tea. Some of it dribbled down his shirt. He didn't seem to notice. I sat down and looked at him. He looks very old now. Ancient. Grizzly and weak. His black skin is tinged with a yellowy gray. Have you got it? He said. Got what? Have you worked it out yet? I don't know what you mean. Come on, Linus, he sighed. It's obvious. You've got a choice, one or the other. It's not going to be easy, of course, but it's all you've got, believe me. His voice was short and breathy. He put down his tea and looked at me. Are you up to it? I shook my head. I'm sorry, but I don't really know what you're talking about. The note, he said. The covenant. It gives you a choice. You have to... His voice broke into a wet cough. An influx of spit splattered his lips. He wiped his mouth and went on. You have to use what you've got, Linus. You turn the bad to good. Understand? Use what you've got. What have I got? Ah. He raised a knobbly finger and waggled it absently in the air. His mouth was smiling loosely, and his good eye was unfocused. It was too much to bear. I looked away, embarrassed. I don't know what to say or where to look or how to feel. The room was silent and white. I stared at the floor, looking for something to look at, looking for patterns in the concrete, anything. Listen, Russell said suddenly. You've got me or Bird. 2 of us. We're both dying anyway. Take your pick. I don't... He waved me quiet. I've had it, Linus. I've had enough. This thing... He touched his head. This thing is eating me. I can see it growing inside my head. I can see it. It changes shape. Like a coal-black finger. Thin and crooked. Like a burnt stick of coral. Like a witch bone. Like a blackened worm dried in the sun. Sometimes it's white. The white of fish gristle. Or pink. Like wet strings of chicken meat. I can see it. It's nothing. Rogue cells. That's all it is. Living bits gone wrong. Deformed misfits. Microscopic barbarians. Juvenile delinquents screwing themselves into oblivion. He laughed. They're devoted to death, the little devils. They'll kill me and die doing it. He looked up. You can't help but admire that, can you? You're not making any sense. Precisely, he said. That's why... Why what? Never mind. He blinked hard. Mr. Bird is infected. I don't know what it is. Dog germs. Probably septicemia. Or meningitis. Or something. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. It doesn't matter. He's dying. Probably got a few days at most. So, there you are. 2 of us. Dead already. You only need the 1. It began to dawn on me what he was saying. You mean... Yes, he grinned. You cheated him at his own game. Kill me or Bird. Or both of us if you want, and he'll let you go. You can go home, go back to your father. Then get the others out. Jenny, Fred... He glanced slyly at the camera on the ceiling and lowered his voice. He doesn't know that we're dying anyway. He doesn't know. I felt like crying. Crying for Russell's mind. For mine, too. I let him carry on for a while, babbling on about the philosophy of death, natural justice, time and physics, until at last his head started sagging again and his eyes began to close and the words dried up. A dribble of spit had collected in the corner of his mouth. I went over and wiped it away, and covered him up with the blanket. Then I walked sadly back to my room. And here I am, lost. My balance is gone. The stuff I was thinking about earlier, about him upstairs enjoying himself, it's true. That's what he's doing. He's just enjoying himself. And the thing is, it doesn't matter what I think about it. It doesn't matter that anyone thinks about it. Comprehension, judgment, disapproval, none of it matters. All that matters to him is his enjoyment, because he's all there is. Nothing else comes to it. It's him alone. What he wants, what he needs, what he does. It's all beyond question. That's all there is to it. See? I told you it was a waste of time thinking about it.